What if I told you that someone needing to talk to their spouse before making a decision is something that you can listen for and completely eliminate or prevent very early on in the call, or at least be able to heavily arm and prepare yourself for it to come up without having to give them a fucking Tony Robbins speech about why they need to make the decision, without having to cause a divorce, and without having to give them marriage counseling? That's exactly what we're going to talk about today. We dropped another spouse video a couple weeks ago. Y'all fucking loved it. So we're back. And today we're going to largely be talking about pre-handling it very early on in the call with strong identity framing. And I have not one but two live calls to show you with prospects who this worked very well with. And the interesting part about the prospects that I chose for this video in this example is they were both female. There's a lot of content out there on how to handle spouse objections and all this shit, how to handle partner objections, but a lot of it is largely with men and telling the man that you need to make a decision and you need to lead your family. But what if it's a woman? You're not going to tell a woman that. It makes no sense. So stick around for the end of the video so you can see it in application with two pretty difficult prospects, because a lot of you tend to just accept a spouse objection when it comes from a female, or even worse, when you're early on in the call and you see that it's a woman, you ask her if she has a husband and then you just reschedule the call with them because you just assume that she can't make a decision. I sold to a lot of women, close to 1,000 sales calls with straight women, and I lost very few deals to spouse objections. So you're going to want to tune in, you're going to stay to the end. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, you're wondering who's this handsome young man who has dreads, who has tattoos, all kinds of shit. My name's Nick. I've closed 3 million in high ticket sales. I've helped countless people like here, fucking everywhere do the exact same. The reason I've been able to get such results is because I work very closely with everybody that I work with, and I only take on 5 new clients a month. So if you're a high ticket closer, you're on an offer, you want to speed up the process, link in the bio, apply. All that said, let's dive in. So what we're going to talk about here is identity framing. Now this shit gets thrown around all the time on the internet. So before we get into the word tracks, all the cool shit and the live calls, you first have to understand what even is identity framing. But before that, you have to understand what an identity is. So very simple, an identity is just what someone sees themselves as, right? The dictionary here says that the fact of being who or what a person or thing is. Simple shit, right? Now this is important to understand because people make decisions anchored in their identity, anchored in who they believe to be. According to a study done by PubMed Central, people interpret situations and difficulties in ways that are congruent with currently active identities and prefer identity congruent to identity incongruent actions. So when an action feels identity congruent, experience difficulty highlights that behavior is more important and meaningful. This is neuroscience coming from motherfuckers way smarter than you and I. So I want y'all to know I'm not making this shit up, right? And to simplify that, all that says is someone sees themselves a certain way and they make decisions in alignment with how they see themselves. This is really important when it comes to the spouse objection. So just keep that in the back of your mind. If someone believes that smart people take time to make their decisions, well then you're gonna get to think about it if that's what they believe, right? If someone believes that a good spouse consults their partner before making a decision for themselves, but then you're going to get a spouse objection because they're going to make a decision in alignment with what they believe a good spouse is, what they believe a smart person is, right? I hope I'm not losing you. Now that you understand that, that is the flaw in their thinking. That's what we need to shift. And the cool part about this is you don't need to give them marriage counseling, like I said in the beginning. You don't need to change everything about how their marriage works. You don't need to do all this shit. You just need them to make a decision through the lens of what they see a good spouse is, and you need to shift what they see a good spouse is, right? I hope I'm not losing you here. But it all comes to their identity. Good husbands make decisions like good husbands. I like to think of myself as a smart motherfucker. I make decisions. I don't make stupid decisions, at least most of the time, right? Sometimes I do. Smart parents make decisions like smart parents, right? Are you with me? So now that you understand what an identity is and why this is so important when it comes to sales, how do we apply this to a sales call? So there's a few things you need to understand when it comes to pre-handling a spouse objection. Really, any fucking objection, you need context. Context is really important because without context, you're just like throwing shit at the wall. So the context in this specific situation is how this problem is affecting their spouse. So like I sold life coaching to female doctors who spent a lot of time charting, doing all this shit. And so I would first gain context around how is this affecting the way that they show up at home. Right? Maybe some of you sell things teaching people how to make money, and you get a woman on who wants to be able to make more money for the family, right? You need to understand how their current income, how it affects their family, how it affects their husband. Maybe their husband has a lot on his plate. Maybe he's the breadwinner. Shit, maybe she's the fucking breadwinner. When it comes to understanding how it's affecting their spouse, how it's affecting their family, you need to weave this into their identity, right? So you really want to follow these 4 steps, right? You want to gather the context, you want to ask how their partner feels, and ultimately create guilt. Now, a lot of the shit sales the difference between manipulation and persuasion is the intention. So don't take what I'm saying here and go ruin people's fucking lives. Like, I have to say that because you're learning powerful shit here, right? Gather context, then you want to ask, how does the partner feel about that? And then you want to ask in a leading way, does the partner trust their judgment to make the decision? And then you want to reward them for being a good spouse. And you want to villainize the people who don't think this way. So ultimately what we're doing is we're connecting their current identity of being a good spouse to being the kind of person who takes action and responsibility and doesn't put that on their spouse. You see what I'm saying? And we're separating the person from the unideal identity. That's why we're villainizing the people who would go ask their spouse, right? But you're doing it very subtly. So I'm gonna pull up a call here and show you this shit in action. This is gonna be the first prospect. And again, I have to drive this home, guys, that we are only doing this to help people. Do not go ruining anybody's fucking life here, okay? It's the only thing that I want. Only promise that you have to make is that you're not gonna go fucking. Right, so here's the call here. I'm gonna put a checkbox up somewhere so you can see this shit being checked off in action. Gather context, ask how they feel, ask if they trust judgment, and then reward them for being a good spouse. So right here, this is the gathering context part.
I mean, my husband definitely is like, why do you have to work so much? I mean, my husband is like semi-retired, so he like wants to do fun things all the time. And, it's always just the push-pull. So he goes off and does things on his own. But sometimes I'd like to join him, and I feel like I can't.
So that a question I asked right before this is, how does that affect your husband? And she just gave me some sauce, right? We're gathering context. She said he goes off, he does his own thing. He's like, why do you have to work so much? Let's keep going. And like, as men, we're funny. We're not always very expressive. Sounds like he is, though. When you look at it that way, how do you think that makes your husband feel? Boom, right? That's number 2, right? How does the husband feel? How does your partner feel? This is where we're going to create some guilt, which is important for her to be able to make a decision without having to consult him, because he's the whole fucking reason she has to make a decision.
I'm sure he feels like, that I should be able to balance things more and spend more time, doing fun things and not working all the time. So he would rather like have more time to do fun things and travel, etc. So.
And how does that? Ooh, he would rather have more time to do fun things, travel. He wishes it wasn't like this, right? Keep watching. Let's keep going. That make you, as the wife, feel? So before she answers, what's important, and a couple things, right? The intention, which is why I keep beating a fucking dead horse, that we're doing this to help people, is important. And also the pacing of the words. We don't want to just fire the question out because it won't have as much impact. So pay attention to how I ask that question. Like, I'm almost stuttering on my words a little bit. I'm looking for the words, even though I know exactly what I'm going to say. And how does that make you, as the wife, feel? Right? I'm drawing it out so she can slow it down and think as slow as I'm speaking.
I mean, a little guilty that, like torn between wanting to please him and wanting to like serve my patients.
Guilty. Perfect.
In my practice, right? So I feel this sense of responsibility to try to, steer the practice, and, have things be successful in the practice. So
yeah. And what's his name? We keep saying husband. I like to ask this question just so we can make it even more real, right? Because right now we're just talking about just a dude, but I want what's his name, right? Like, let's make it real.
Oh, Jay.
Jay. And does he know you're looking at like potentially getting outside support so he doesn't have to keep going and doing things alone, or is it like a pleasant surprise for him? Right now we're understanding. We're at part 3. I'm asking if he knows whether or not she's here to get support, and then does he trust your judgment is the next part. Let's keep going.
No, it'll be a pleasant surprise for him, I'm sure.
How do you think he'll take it?
I think he'd be supportive.
Yeah. And so is it one of those things where he's just like, he just wants his lady back, he wants to be able to do more things with you, And like whatever that looks like, he kind of trusts your judgment. So remember how I said you ask it in a little bit of a leading way, right? Because you don't want to ask it in a way of like, oh, okay. And is it one of those things that you guys like to make decisions as a family together? Or is it you could just go off and make your own decision without even saying anything to him? Of course, she's not going to answer that way, right? We're asking it in a leading way of okay, does he knows that he has that these problems are going on and he wants you to be able to solve it and he kind of trusts your judgment. It's gonna be really fucking hard to say no to a question like that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, um, yeah,
Yeah.
we, yeah.
You said you have what?
Oh, I don't know. We were each really, he had different hobbies and interests. So, some things, but sometimes, we can do things together. So,
Yeah.
like he texted me today that like a friend of his offered us concert tickets to a kind of cool venue this weekend. And did I want him to get a ticket? And I was like, I don't know because we're going to our friend's house this weekend. We're going to someone's lake place for an overnight. And then it was like, I don't know, I might have to work to catch up. Like, when am I going to chart? So, like, already, like, instantly I'm thinking about that. Like, but if I didn't have, 40 charts to do, I might be like, oh, yeah, that sounds fun. Let's go to a concert, like.
So I'm all for interrupting the prospect when they start to go off on tangents, but there's also some value in like knowing when to shut the fuck up, right? Because earlier her answer, if you guys heard it, was very shaky, right? She's like, yeah. When I ask if he trusts her judgment, she's like, yeah. But I let her keep going, and she gave me yet another example of why this problem is affecting her spouse. Cool. Let's keep going.
Let's go to a concert, like I just feel like that's always,
And it goes back to what we're saying. It sounds like even with him inviting you to stuff like that, is he wants you to be more present. He wants you to be able to do things and kind of like trust
yeah,
that however you think you'll be able to make that happen.
yeah.
It sounds like you have a good one. Right? Boom. So that's a much better yeah, right? It wasn't yeah, it was yeah, right? You got to listen to the tone. And so we've already checked the first three. We got the context, we got the guilt, we asked if he trusts his judgment. And now what we're about to do is reward her for being a good spouse, all right? And villainize the other way of thinking. You'd be surprised how many, I don't want to say hard headed, but there's just some providers we can't help who they know they need to change. Their kids know, their husband knows. But then when it's time to change, they want to deflect the decision to them, or they want to deflect the responsibility of them. So it sounds like you've already kind of taken the ownership there. I'm glad that's not the conversation we're having. Yo, we're cooking up. We're cooking up right here, right? I'm glad that's not the conversation we're having, right? Because I won't say hard-headed, but you know those people, right? Those people who they know they need to do something, but then when it's time to do it, they want to ask their fucking husband. They want to consult their husband. Like, I'm glad I'm talking to you today, though. Shout out to Eli Wild for that. That's who I learned that from. Right?
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm like, he's like, do you want to go to the concert? And I'm like, so, but even when I decide, yes, I want to go to the concert, I know that I'll be sitting there at the concert, like feeling a little guilty, sometimes I just like have to let it go. I mean, I do, I try to protect certain things. Like I really like doing yoga and I, am like kind of religious.
Right? Boom. Now we got what we need. She just said that she's going to be feeling guilty again, which is even more reason why she needs to fucking move forward. She needs to make a decision. She doesn't need to keep bothering him with the decision because he's the one who's going to be benefited from it. Right? Now, you just saw all four of those things in action. Now, a lot of you are probably watching this like, oh, but that lady fell right into it. I know how you motherfuckers think, right? Oh, she fell right into it. That was too easy. Okay, but what if they don't? What if they give me a little bit of a curveball? What if the husband isn't on board? Right, I'm gonna show you another call of how to handle that when they're not fully on board and when it doesn't go as smooth as I'm telling you. Though 80 to 90% of the time, it's gonna go just as smooth as that because of how subtle it is. Right, so now we're gonna pull up another one. Okay, so we're gonna skip the gathering context part. Right here, what we're gonna look at is me asking, "Oh, does he know?" and then her watch how she answers and watch how I handle it. Know you're looking at like potentially getting that outside support so that you're not so overwhelmed with the short end of the stick, or is it like a pleasant surprise for him?
Um, well, no, it was just kind of me exploring. He has no idea.
How do
I
you
was
think you feel?
wondering what is even possible um, before making some sort of decision.
See, that's a fucking red flag right there. She just said, I'm exploring before making a decision. I haven't even said anything to him. Luckily she has the internet chill's closer on, so I'm not shook, right? Let's see where we go. And how do you think he like put us aside, take us out of it when it comes to you getting that support wherever you get it? How do you think he would feel? This is now where you need to separate the program and me and us, and you want to isolate all that shit and talk about the problem, right? Fuck the program, fuck me. Let's talk about the problem. Does he know that you're looking at potentially solving this problem? How does he feel about you solving the problem itself?
He'd probably think it's stupid.
Stupid shit. Okay. Why would he think it's stupid? That was really my reaction. Shit, stupid. I wasn't expecting that.
Because he doesn't believe in this kind of stuff. He thinks, he should be able to pull you.
Look at my face right there. You know I'm about to cook, right? Because he doesn't believe in it. He thinks it's stupid, and he doesn't even fucking know. Let's keep going. Also, if you go look at one of my pinned posts on Instagram, the one that I'm wearing this shirt, this is the lady that fucking hung up on me, and then we got her back on. And I'm pretty sure she went and crushed it in the program. Let's keep going.
Your own self up and deal with things. That's just the way it's always been.
Yeah. So like, it's a dangerous place to be, right? Can I tell you a personal story? You're obviously being vulnerable. Can I get vulnerable? Is that okay? So this is what's called tactical vulnerability. So first of all, the story I'm about to give here is 100% real. And I've told the story multiple times, right? It's 100% real. And the thing about stories and why they're so powerful is when you tell a story, people are very self-centered just as humans. And so they're going to make themselves the fucking main character of that story. And so this is what I do to be able to get ahead of the spouse objection when the husband or the wife isn't on board, right? Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I'm not from this country, right? I was born in Kenya. I came here when I was 2. And when I came here, my parents were accountants back home. And then when they came to this country, none of that mattered. And so they were working in gas stations. And so from being an accountant to making $6 an hour, I'm sure you can imagine that wasn't paying anyone's bills. So credit cards became their best friend. And as a result, 15, 20 years later, they were drowning in debt. My mom, she came across a gentleman named Dave Ramsey, and he helps people get out of debt is his thing. And presented it to my dad, and my dad was like, this is stupid, it's a scam, this isn't real, America's built on debt, there's no such thing as being debt free. So my mom was like, fuck it, I'm going to invest into this thing, I'm going to learn how to get out of debt and have better financial security. And she did. 6 months later, she was out of debt. It took her 15 years to get to. And so I'm sure you can imagine my dad saw that and he was like, well, maybe being debt free is real. So he also did it. And within a year, 15 to 20 years of debt was knocked out. But it started with my mom being the one to say, fuck it. You see? And so when it comes to this situation, seeing how burdened you are, seeing how you feel like you're getting the short end of the stick. So we're going to pause real quick. So I gave a very real story about my parents and about us coming into this country. My parents were drowning in debt, and I brought it right. So my mom genuinely said, fuck it. She invested into Dave Ramsey's program. Shout out to Dave Ramsey. She got out of debt. My dad did the same thing. Started with her saying, fuck it though. Now I need to bring it back to her situation, and I need to bring context though. Right? Because remember, we're not here to talk about me and my life story. I'm only saying that to be able to make my point. Now we're going to bring it right back to her. Thick, and he thinks that getting support is stupid. Like, are you willing to, for lack of a better term, be the one who says fuck it?
Yeah, because I'm gonna do what I have to do. Yeah. I know it's supposed to be a partnership, but again, I have to take care of myself. I want to be there for my kids. I have to figure something out.
You're smart for that. You're smart for that. Boom. And then we ended off with the identity frame of her being smart for that, her being the smart spouse, of knowing that she has to do what she needs to do for herself, for her kids, right? This is the 2 separate types of ways to be able to handle this, right? And it all came down to context, guilt, do they trust your judgment, and then rewarding them for being a good spouse. The thing I missed there is I didn't villainize the people who don't think this way, right? If I could go back into that code, I'd been like, you're smart for that, because you'd be surprised how many people, I don't want to say hard-headed, I'll never say hard-headed, but people who know that they need to change, maybe their spouse isn't on board, but then they don't do anything. And then years build up and then they resent them. And you know how those people end up. But I'm glad that's not the conversation we're having though. right? If I could redo it, I would add that. So if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Guys, do not just watch this shit and just feel good. Actually go implement it. Take this into your next call, right? The 4 steps that I gave you. Take it into your next call. See how it actually works. Shit, DM me on Instagram once you do that. And let me know how it's working for you. Let me know if it's landing. Let me know if there's parts that aren't landing. Like, actually implement it. The smart people, right? The most successful reps are the ones who watch this and their speed to implementation is quick and they don't need all this confirmation, right? They get out of their head, they do it, they get feedback. That's you. Because like, you'd be surprised, guys, how many hard-headed reps watch a video like this and then they just feel good and they don't do anything. But my audience is smarter than that, though. I know my audience is smarter than that. I don't even need to talk about that any longer. So guys, if you made it this far, thank you for tuning in. As always, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Like I said in the beginning, I still have a couple more slots for next month. I work very, very closely with all my clients so that they could get results similar to this one. Like, you get the point. If you're on an offer, you know that there's money being left on the table, you're not making what you want to make, hit the link below, see if you qualify. If not, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.